Hello everyone and welcome. Today we're going to be doing a tutorial on the Fox Binky Bib. Okay, so I already have my hoop prepped. So I've got a piece of tearaway stabilizer, got it in my machine, and I've already uploaded one of two designs in my machine because this design came with two different stitch files. The first one is the ears and the second one would be the body of the Binky Bib. So we're going to go ahead and get started with the ears. Okay, so for your first stitch, it's going to be a tack down stitch of the outer ears. So you're going to grab your piece of fabric that you chose for the outer ears and you're going to put it right in the middle, but you want to make sure that the fabric is right side up. And now we're going to do the tack down stitch. Okay, so we have our tack down stitch done for the outer ears, and I also went ahead and did the placement stitch for the inner part of the ears. Now for the fabric itself, I've chosen a snuggle flannel, which I love to work with because it's very soft and it comes in all different kinds of colors and patterns. So, and it's really good for, you know, baby projects. But when it comes to this design, if you notice in your PDF instructions that it did come with the sizes that you would need for this project. So know when you place your fabric right in the middle, because this is where your pattern is going to start, you should, with the tack down stitch, be right on target. All right, so now that we have our tack down stitch of the outer ears and our placement stitch for the inner ears done, I'm going to take a piece of fabric that I've chosen for the inner part of the ears, and you're going to lay it right on top, completely covering the inner ears. And now your next step is going to be a tack down stitch for the inner ears. Okay, our tack down stitch is done. So what you're going to want to do now is grab your applique scissors or a very sharp piece of scissors, and you're going to want to cut around the top part of the inner ear. Go ahead and leave the bottom. Just cut around this side and this side, just the sides, because the next stitch is a finishing stitch and it's a satin stitch, and it's only going to go around the top part of the ear. Okay, so we have our inner ears done. As you can see, the satin stitch went all the way around the top, and you can leave the bottom because this part is going to be attached to the bib later. So our next step is actually the last stitch in this part of the design, and you're going to take your last piece of fabric, which was labeled back of ears, and you're going to place it just right over the top, because our next stitch is a tack down stitch to secure and sandwich these two pieces together. Okay, so this part of the design is all done. So what we're going to do now is you're going to want to remove everything from the hoop. You want to separate the ears, cut away the excess fabric, take away your stabilizer, and turn them right side out. And then you're just going to set them aside, because the next step is to do our next part of the design, which you should then upload to your embroidery machine, is for the body, basically the bib part of this design. Okay, so now we're on to the next step. I have hooped another piece of stabilizer. Actually, this is the same piece of stabilizer. A little trick that I use, you don't have to use it, but I use it. When there's like a small piece that I've used in this like a massive hoop, there's still a lot of stabilizer left. That's still good stabilizer. So what I do is I grab a piece of my peel and stick stabilizer, and then I just cut a piece out, and I just basically patching the places that I just used. And it's good for, you know, like the smaller projects and stuff, so that way you're not wasting stabilizer. So this is what we did. We made the ears in our last design stitch, and now for this one we're going to do the outline of the Binky Bib itself, And then we're also going to do a placement stitch for the white piece of the face. So what you're going to want to do is grab the fabric that you chose for the front, and you're going to lay it face down. Sorry, you're going to lay it right side up, right on top, and then it's going to stitch out the outline of the binky, and then it's going to do the placement stitch for the white part of the fox. Okay, so here we have the outline of the entire bib, and then you have the outline for the placement stitch for the white part. So let me grab my fabric, and you're going to place them right over that white part, or that last placement stitch line, just like that. And you want to do it face up, and then from here it's going to do a tack down stitch. Okay, so the tack down stitch is done. Now your white fabric is secured to your stabilizer, and what you're going to want to do next is take your sharp scissors or your applique scissors, and you're going to want to cut just on the inside here, because your next stitch is your finishing stitch, and it's going to do a satin stitch just along the inside of this ridge. So I'm going to go ahead and cut my fabric away here. I'm going to do the satin stitch, and I'll be right back. Okay, so here we have it. We have our finishing stitch around the inside of the fox, and so our next step is going to be a placement stitch for the nose. And then from there, once you have your placement stitch down, you're going to take your piece of fabric that you've chosen for the nose, face up. You're going to put it over your placement stitch, do the tack down stitch, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so the tack down stitch is done. So what you're going to want to do is take your scissors, applique or Sharpie, whatever you use, and you're just going to cut across the top here, because our next stitch is going to be a finishing stitch, and it's going to do a satin stitch right along the top right there. So yeah, just cut right here, and then your finishing stitch will go right along there. Okay, so our finishing stitch is done. As you can see, it went right over the top. I wouldn't worry too much about this side fabric. You don't really need to cut it away, because when you put your top piece on to finish the Binky Bib, all of this is going to be cut away when you cut away your excess fabric. So I went ahead and pushed forward, because your next stitch is just going to do the eyes of your fox, and then the next stitch is the placement stitch for your ears. So ear placement, you want to find the line right there, and then you definitely want to place it over the line, but you see the most bottom, you want a little bit of the satin stitch, just a little bit over the line. You want it to catch right there. Same thing with the other one. You want to take a little bit of the finish and put it just over the line. And the reason why you want this satin stitch to be just over the line, because your next stitch is your tack down stitch, and then after your tack down stitch, you're going to be removing the bottom part of the fabric of the ear, and then it's going to be doing a finishing stitch, which is a satin stitch right along across the top here. So you want this satin stitch and the bottom satin stitch to connect. So that's why you want this satin stitch on the side just over your placement line. Okay, so I did my tack down stitch, and now the ears are secured to my bib, and you can see that I did the satin stitch just right over the line, so that way it connects, because your next stitch is going to be a satin stitch that goes straight across right there. Okay, so now our ears are attached, and they have a nice little finishing stitch right across the bottom. And as you can see, because we took and we put the satin stitch just over the line, and now the satin stitch on both the top and bottom connect. So our last stitch in the hoop here is basically to combine your back piece of fabric with the fabric that you have on your stabilizer right now. So you want to take your backing piece and you're going to put it face down, and you want to completely cover the outline stitching. But before you do that, you're going to take some painter's tape and you're going to take these ears, because see, the line is right there. It's going to catch your ears. So you want to bring these ears down and you want to tape them. Make sure that they're out of the way and they don't get caught. Okay, so we're going to place our last piece of fabric over the top, and then we're going to run our last stitch. Okay, your machine should have indicated that we are all done with the embroidery part of this project. So what we're going to do now is we're going to remove everything from the hoop. We're going to take off the stabilizer, cut away the excess fabric, and at the gap here, make sure you leave a little flap to tuck in for when you ladder stitch close. And we're going to turn this binky right side out. Okay, so we are almost done. So I turned my binky right side out, and then I ladder stitched closed on the side here. So this is what it should look like. And now we have to put on snaps or some kind of attachment that will allow this binky to close and also to actually hold a binky. So I use these snaps. They are a godsend. I use them in all of my crafts because they're quick and they come in different colors, and they're really simple to attach. All you need is this tool to poke your hole where you want it to be, and then this tool to secure them. And you can find these at any craft store, and these can be purchased on Amazon or craft store, and they come in all different colors. So what you want to do is first you want to see how you want it attached, and so mine will be right about there. So you're going to take your tool, and I always hold them like this is how I want it to be snapped, so I'm going to hold it just like that, and then right in the center, making sure I will pierce both sides, I just push straight through and it makes your hole. And then for the snaps, you want to make sure you want two of the backing, and then you want your male and your female. And you want two sets because one's going to be for up here and one's going to be for down at the bottom here. So then you're going to remove this, and then you've got your holes. So I'm going to do the back first, and since I want the female part sticking up this way, I'm going to put the backing in through here, and it's going to go right through the hole that I just made. And then I'm going to take my female part, put it right down over the backing, take my clamp, place it in, clamp it down, And now I've got my first one. And then I'm going to take my other piece, and since I want the male piece going down into the female piece, I'm going to put my backing on the top and push it through the hole that I just made. Put my male piece on top. And then clamp down. And it doesn't need a lot of pressure, just enough to squish that middle piece down in there. And then we have our first snap. So I'm going to go ahead and do the bottom one off camera, and then I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so here we have it. We have our snaps in place. And this one's on the back, the front. So you just snap it off here, put your binky in, snap it, and you've got this cute little fox binky. Well, I hope you enjoyed the tutorial and you were able to follow along, and I look forward to seeing your guys' creation. Happy stitching, everyone!